Hey everyone, my name is Jack Devnarain. This is Ferguson Media and welcome to the Good News Check-in. What a pleasure to finally have in our podcast studio a really good friend of mine, a mentor, a teacher, playwright, entrepreneur, producer, and stage actor par excellence, Pat Pillai.
Thank you, Jack. Whoa.
Yeah, how was that for an intro?
Amazing. I'm flabbergasted. I never ever thought you'd even remember half of that.
There is an irony, I think, in the way the Indian community, there's a culture of prizing certain professions. Teacher, respectable, accountant, respectable, doctor, super respectable. And there doesn't seem to be the same respect attached to people who are professional performers. And yet, there are moments when the community itself takes great pride in presenting their performers, whether it's some kind of a ritual or there's a ceremony to be had. Then you look for those voices that can carry those wonderful songs, the bhajans, the kirtans, or the musicians, and somebody who can play the tabla and the harmonium. And you look for those people because you need them suddenly. And yet, you couldn't present them as this is a professional performer. That somehow brought on just that tinge of shame. Where's the culture of performance amongst Indian people in South Africa?
It is what you've described, and you speak from experience.
Yeah.
I mean, being an accomplished actor yourself, people will call for Jack when there's an annual celebration or remembrance of a great life lived. Suddenly they remember.
Yeah.
Get hold of Jack. He can do this, right? And you arrive and people are moved. And if someone else who wasn't skilled in the art read the same words, it wouldn't have the same impact.
It simply doesn't.
It just doesn't, because there is a skill and an art to that. And in South Africa, the South African tradition, not just within the South African Indian community, there generally seems to be a similar regard for our storytellers and our artists and the painters and the thinkers at times like that.
Yes, exactly.
And then we'll struggle to have people remember and acknowledge the contribution of those actors, even the work that you're currently doing to make sure that actors are recognized.
Yeah.
Even that aspect, the fact that it's so hard to get the South African public behind it. A few do, but you'd think they would be over that all of the time.
Yeah.
But sadly, it wasn't supported by policy then, and it's not as strongly supported by policy now. There is a role for policy. People do have a natural inclination to celebrate their storytellers.
Yeah.
But if it's not funded and supported, and policy doesn't reinforce that in a way that's constant, that celebrates, human beings get caught up in their everyday lives.
Yeah.
And then they've just got to find a way to get through this week and make sure they can pay that bill and get the child to school, and they need shoes and so on. And in moments of hiatus, they look for Jack.
Yeah.
They look for that voice. But it should be there all the time. I think it's a failure of policy.
Yeah.
I think individuals would appreciate it when a show comes along that speaks to them and they feel heard and seen and feel their story and their heart and soul is reflected. Sure, that happens. But it still happens in pockets.
I wonder if you've seen this recent Michael Jackson movie.
Yes.
A lovely little scene there where the young Michael Jackson is standing in the family living room watching TV and he sees James Brown. Yeah. And in watching James Brown, the way that he moves on stage, Michael Jackson, as this young boy, starts to take on that persona. It's almost as if he gives himself permission to perform and move and to exude this wonderful, sensational personality, simply because there's familiarity with this. There's another person, my color, and he's doing this magical thing. I can do that too.
Yeah.
So the representation is such a huge thing. People will only resonate with that once they see that performer doing the thing that resonates with them.
That is true. And representation is very important. Very important. That a child sees whether it be in a magazine or it be in any form of media or live storytelling in their community often first and then beyond, they see themselves reflected in some way.
Yeah.
And sure, there's a role for Jack and Jill, and there's a role for Rapunzel and whatever else, but it's our own stories that more closely reflect the emotional journey children enjoy,
Yeah.
or what they don't enjoy in our circumstance. They're very, very important. But it's so often that writers seem to have to find the thing that is going to sustain their next income check, that they look for the commercial, and I don't blame them for that.
Yeah.
People have got to live. You find great storytellers, actors, news broadcasters, whether they be on radio or television, or they do this kind of thing, or they happen to be working in a print medium and so on, tend to, their hearts and minds want to take them to the truth of a story. But somewhere along the line, there's an accounting office in the background that doesn't quite enjoy that story because advertisers didn't necessarily support it, and so our stories fade again.
Yeah.
And it takes courage to go against that and to create something unique.
That's so true. I think you really captured the sense of people's the need to appreciate, to absorb storytelling when you were well into the run of At the Edge. And I think that's when you really brought people into your world as a performer and into the stories which had been written. Many of them had been written by Ronnie Govender. I know you adapted some of them for stage. That was quite a process, because up to that point I had known you as a member of a cast, a wonderful, crazy, energetic cast of characters as an ensemble, and everybody played various characters. But what set you apart then was your journey into going into this one-man show, At the Edge. And it told a variety of stories, but mostly in that Cato Manor area at a time of the Group Areas Act, and feeling the heavy-handed effects of apartheid and exploitation and racial segregation. Beautifully written by Ronnie Govender, but you had to bring them to life. So what was that journey like for you, going from the ensemble experience and the university life and those shows, going into the loneliness of the one-man show?
Oh, important word you use there, loneliness of it. Because I had come from ensemble casts. I came from student productions. And we were asked at the time as university students in the 80s to write and to get involved in creating protest theatre. And there's a number of people who played a role in that. But it was always communal. And even if you got into a car and got to Phoenix, or you happened to go to KwaMashu to put something on, or Chatsworth or Merebank or wherever it was, you did it as a group. Now that was my experience.
Yeah.
Good word, loneliness. So Ronnie Govender pens a wonderfully rich set of stories, really as prose, to be published as a book. So when he speaks to me, he comes to me last. Because the stories are about Cato Manor.
Yeah.
It captures an area of Durban which is deep within the hearts of people within and around Durban. In fact, in KwaZulu-Natal, many areas were affected by group areas. The reason he comes to me last is he'd spoken to many great storytellers in Durban who were born and raised in Durban. His instinct, of course, as a writer-director, is to find someone local who could get it. I'm last on his list because many of them say, no, thank you.
Yeah.
Right? They read the prose, and he really presented, lots of words.
Right, exactly.
Let's just say lots of words.
He was known for lots of words.
Lots of words. And he finally comes to me and says, look, Naina, have a look at this. It's a one-man show. So I don't know what a one-man show is, Jack.
Yeah.
It's not as if in that day and age you could put Netflix on and watch Chappelle.
You're right.
So I had a reference point. I don't know what it is. And he says, have a read. We'll discuss it tomorrow. But I didn't sleep that night.
Yes.
So I've read this tome.
Yeah.
I'm loving the stories, but because I'm meant to bring it to life on stage, I can't see myself standing there delivering 12 pages of prose describing the beauty of the vegetation, the redness of the sand, and the smell of rain after it's fallen. Ronnie will spend 12 pages describing that.
Yeah, he would.
Says, how do I, remember I'm a teacher too.
Right.
Like, how do I do that? So I go back to him the next day and I say, I think it can be done, but permission to make this work for stage. It's not, of course, that's what the point is. But he loves every word and loves every character.
Yeah,
so we finally do it over 8 weeks. It feels lonely because he'd come in the morning and he'd say, all right, we're working on this particular scene, right, for this week. Then he'd go to the pub. Then he'd get
Only
back.
the best directors could do that.
Yes. Then he'd get back in the afternoon and say, right, let's see how far we've gone. But I've cut all of the prose out, and I just want to have a character say, sitting under a tree, I smelt the rain, and what he felt, not a narrator. And so I began to discover. I wasn't skilled in it. I wish I could say I was. I simply thought, how could the story translate to an audience or a classroom? Remember, I'm thinking classroom.
Right.
And secondarily would be a theatre audience. And so when I cut things through, he was, at first he was like, wait, hang on.
Yeah, where are my words?
You spent years developing this. But when I did, to his credit, when I did finally stand up and have a character say some of that, he went, okay, I like that.
I get it.
And so it went.
Yeah.
But it did feel lonely. And he would come in and have the debate with me every now and again. And over 6 weeks that happened, we finally had a show that was 2 hours long.
Really?
42 characters. And we said, and we tried it at the Cane Growers Hall, the Ashoka Theatre, wherever we could. Few people came. And slowly he started seeing and feeling with me in the presence of an audience, no matter how small. That felt too long. That needs more. And a cut-neck Bobby character needed more time.
Yeah.
A Bulwa needed more time. They were interesting.
Yeah.
It wasn't Ronnie and I. And so I discovered by accident that in the end, stories are told by characters and less so by narrators. Narrators serve characters.
Yeah.
That was a jewel of a find.
That's incredible. So you found yourself making room for the character to emerge, and people engage with the character.
Yeah. And I learned something interesting then in that loneliness was, if I wasn't drawn to the character, nobody else would be. And the temptation to be the narrator, because he structures the narrator as the primary school principal who's remembering. Okay. The temptation to be the narrator is wonderful because Pat is the narrator. So you think, people will listen. But if you read a great Shakespeare, or you read a great Athol Fugard, characters speak.
Yeah.
Shakespeare doesn't step up and give you a great expose. Fugard doesn't step up and tell you what the play is about. The characters do.
Yeah.
So trimming it back was important. Interestingly, then I felt less lonely. Because now I had not 42, but we had reduced that down to 30-something characters. So I stepped up, and my job was to simply give people these 30 characters. And some just had a few lines, and some had more. But suddenly I had an ensemble again.
You were back in an ensemble.
I was in an ensemble.
Of one actor.
Yeah. I just had to play the different characters. And that was a lovely discovery.
Yeah.
And it was an accidental one. I wish I could say I designed it. It was a stumble, oh my goodness, this is lovely.
Yeah. But that process then, what you discovered, your workshopping of each character to make them engaging and interesting, trimming back on some and giving others more life, that became a process, a reliable process for you then going forward. Because, before we get into your latest production, My Cape Town, I would imagine that you would take yourself back into the process of At the Edge and say, now, how do I test this and keep working on it, refine it now? I don't have to go through the entire experience of At the Edge, but I can take from that experience what I know works. Yeah. Is that how you approached a lot of the characters?
And because you too are a storyteller, I hear in your question an understanding. So thank you. And you're right. I had stumbled across a method, and I'm not a method actor. I don't have to run 10 kilometers to be tired at the finish line, okay?
Right.
But I had discovered a method of transposing prose into the minds and lives and hearts and spirits of characters. And I learnt this then. Love each and every character, even that aggressive, violent cop.
Yeah.
If I don't love each character as a storyteller and in service of the characters, the audience is never moved.
Yeah.
If they see Pat throughout, they're bored out of their minds. Even when doing news, and I was a news reader. I'm not a journalist who sat in the back and went out and found every story. My job was very simple. I sit as part of a news team. The assignments editor then works and allocates stories for the day. If nothing else pops up as breaking news that day, that will be the end of the day. And then reporters and cameramen go out and they finally pull this together. And then finally, it's put together by the producer. My role is to understand that and then simply be the hinge, what is it called on the side? What's that called again?
The spine.
The spine. Just to be the spine on the book and hold it all together and just present that. But if Pat's at the center of the story, who the hell cares?
Sure.
They care about the story. What happened right now in Meadowlands? What's happening in Gaza?
Yeah.
That's what's important. And I learned that pretty much at university. You simply serve the characters. And that method, I use it in inverted commas, that I stumbled upon, I did find useful in creating the works. It's a similar thing of serve the characters. That's all. So they don't see Pat when he tells a story. They get lost in characters and all of their foibles and confusions and anger and sadness and joy. Then I'm doing my job.
I want to go into that time, you as a newsreader, because as a performer, everyone remembered Pat and At the Edge. And then there was this hiatus. We saw Pat, then he was on the news. And everybody thought, well, is that what he's doing now? It's like he's reading the news. But we all knew that it wasn't you. That's a different version of you. So it was at that point that people started to wonder whether you really still cared about performance. Why did you go into newsreading? What was that opportunity about for you?
Well, it was again by accident. I am a series of accidents, and some of them left me bruised and wounded, and some of them just nudged me forward. But in this case, I'm working at the SABC at the time. It's in 1992, and the SABC wants to change. Zwelakhe Sisulu is our CEO, looking for a new South African Broadcasting Corporation for a new nation. The ANC is unbanned. Nelson Mandela and others officially properly released. Not this talk of it coming. And myself, Vuyo Mbuli, and a range of others at the time. Vuyo Mbuli, interestingly enough, is also a teacher.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. And we get called in because we were asked to help with a mission to educate the nation. Now, don't see myself as a news anchor. I'm a storyteller. I'm a teacher. So's Vuyo and the others that are being trained. And someone called Adrian Steed, who was a broadcaster at his time, excellent broadcaster, is asked to train us. And then I get put in front of a camera like this for the first time.
Yeah.
And he says, all right, tell me a story. Of course, I fall apart.
Yeah.
Vuyo does better than me. And long story short, he finally says, in the broadcast media, if you for a second say or have it into your mind that you're talking to millions, or you say, welcome to all of you at home, you've lost me.
Ah.
He says, it's a broadcast medium, everyone else knows it. But for the person experiencing you alone, in their lounge, even if there's a mummy, daddy, and two daughters, they each experience you alone. You always speak to one, never the many. one. And if you do that well, 2 million people will feel you spoke to them.
Right.
What a gift. So anyway, we soak this up and work on it and develop this. But we're getting ready not for news, we're getting ready for something called NNTV, National Network Television. It's a channel that, and it carried educational programs like Will Smith, Teleschool.
Yeah.
That's what it carried, to educate a nation. Remember that time? And anyway, we help make this thing happen. That channel eventually becomes SABC3. And from that comes a whole range of programming. And then Vuyu and I and a few others get invited to come in and do a similar job for news, humanize news, become the face of the nation, the diversity of all of us together, representing what stories our stories are in South Africa. So I don't train as a journalist. I'm a teacher. My job is to take what great journalists do and be a human link to share that story with audiences, one at a time, always only one. And that really was an accident too. So by the time E-News calls, Deborah Patter, Patrick Conroy, and Joe Hlolwe, I get a call to come and meet with them, and they ask if I will join the E-News team. And it's pretty much the same request. We've got a great team, we're investing, we want to grow this. Can you be part of this team and be that human interface? I said, what a pleasure.
Yeah. News reading, it took you into a whole different area, but everybody, like all your friends and fans, thought you were never going to return to stage, and then we see you at the Maynardville Shakespeare Festival, where you were in Romeo and Juliet. Was that your return then to stage officially after 20 years? Or how long was it?
Yeah, it was about 20 years that I'd done no theatre at all. And this was, in many ways, the first live theatre experience. I've been writing all that time, but done nothing with it. And when the opportunity came to play Capulet in Romeo and Juliet, Jeffrey Hyland cast me. And I let him know the risks. In the very first cast reading, I declared, it's been 20 years. I don't know if I can do this. I said, I declared at the first reading, I am the oldest newbie. And I'm not sure what will happen. He sort of smiled and said, all right, we'll continue. And playing Capulet was difficult. If you know the play, he's the father who doesn't approve of Juliet, his daughter, marrying Romeo. And to find the balance between loving his daughter but being enraged that she would marry his arch enemy, right, was difficult. But here's the challenge for me. I can read through that and intellectualize it, but I had to wake up muscles I hadn't used. I had to find ways to interpret Shakespeare's text and make it real in 2024. Was that the year we did it? 2024, for the first time, and follow Jeffrey Hyland's direction, which was superb, so we can tell a story and capture people today, you know. And I struggled. I struggled with the text. I couldn't recall the text as soon as I wanted to. Shakespeare and his iambic pentameter and his rhyming couplets drove me nuts.
His rhyming Capulets.
His rhyming couplets and rhyming Capulets. And I enjoyed him all along, but suddenly, at 60 years old, I had to put this in my head, interpret, and make it mine. And I hated him. I said, why do you write like this? You know, I loved him before, but 20 years of not engaging with it, and I couldn't understand why it wasn't in my head. And then with great support from my wife, and of course the team and Jeff, finally we get, and I think when you saw it, it was the opening night, I think you were there. I'd finally managed to settle with it, and I felt like I was chasing myself. So it was difficult to get back into it, but yet I absolutely loved it. And again, I was part of an ensemble. I wasn't alone. There was a team to lean on. There was someone to look at and just ask a question, did that read? To look at a director and actually have somebody saying, that went over the top. mean, he's not going to kill his daughter right now. He's just a little bit upset. But where you going? This man's a mass murderer. Can you bring it back, please? So I think that was lovely. It was the right way. My wife's advice was, if we're going to get back into this, rather go into an ensemble first. Lovely experience. I wouldn't trade it. And I think it gave me the confidence to consider the next project, which is where we are now.
Let's talk about this next project, My Cape Town. It didn't take long. So the question is, did you have the stories of My Cape Town already somewhere in your archive ready to be released? How did you arrive at the stories and the characters of My Cape Town?
I'd been writing them from the time I was a child.
Oh.
And when I look back, and the writing was, Mr. Govender, my English teacher at Rylands High, and he would encourage us to think and write from our own experience and outside and imagine. And if I look back at compositions and free writing, remember those compositions and free writing in those days, some of the elements were there. And if I look back and think back to those ideas, they weren't well formulated, but there was something. And Mr. Govender is an amazing teacher. He stays with me when I'm writing to this day. He's not a critical voice, he's an encouraging voice, but I hear him asking me the kinds of questions he did when we were in school, and it helped shape things.
Yeah.
He's always been my companion without him physically being there. But they were written from then. They are a manifestation of what's happened through understanding the human condition in South Africa, not just Cape Town, while being involved with the news team, because these human stories arrive and they ultimately get decided, by the editor that will go on air tonight. And many of those human stories, we present the facts, and I find myself wondering about the human being. What are those? So they've always been there, and then I go back and I write a little bit more. So there are about 44, 45 of those stories. In this play, there's only 5 or 6 of them. And from that came a selection to make My Cape Town happen.
Yeah.
It wasn't called My Cape Town when I first wrote. I was just imagining a lot of the lives of people that have influenced this. And this is the interesting thing. Even though the project's called My Cape Town now, the characters are influenced by people I met throughout my life. In Durban for 10, 12 years, living and working and studying there. In Johannesburg, my third home. I often say there's my Cape Town, there's my Durban, and there's my Joburg, where I lived and grew and breathed and made life and worked and so on throughout my life. Even though these characters are under this banner of My Cape Town, the show, they fleshed out by the people I encountered throughout South Africa. It's a strange thing because people want to put it under this banner of.
Yeah.
But an old man living in a shack who loves his daughter is understood in Tshwane, is understood in Meadowlands, is understood in KwaMashu, is understood in Cape Town itself, but it's understood. I don't have to necessarily brand that person a Cape Town homeless person.
Yeah.
But it just so happens this character lives in Cape Town.
And this is what makes the characters and the stories universal in their appeal, right?
I hope so. I hope so. And in shaping this and selecting these few stories, I have a sense as a writer that this will speak to people anywhere. I'd love to test it.
Yeah.
And that's the magic of theatre. You only know when you stand up in front of a group of people who will bless you with an hour and a half of their time.
Yeah.
And then at the end of it, you know.
It's a scary place to be, though. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Technically speaking, as a performer, what is your process to finding the heart, the mannerisms, the delivery, the presence of this character you're trying to create? Every actor has their method. And you made a point earlier of saying you don't follow the method, as in the Strasbourg method or anything like that. But every actor over time and experience develops their own method. What is your method for creating these characters, firstly, and then inhabiting them?
It's it's understanding what the writer intended. I always go to the text.
Yeah.
A wonderful production that I was lucky to be cast in at the Ashoka Theatre in the 80s was a play called The Trial of Dedan Kimathi, written by Ngugi wa Thiong'o. And it captures the Mau Mau movement, the liberation fight in Kenya, the famous Mau Mau movement. And I played Dedan Kimathi. And it's not my lived experience. My lived experience is the South African struggle. I only have the text and whatever I can find. There's no Google then. You catch what you can within libraries and you read the text. And if ever I learned the lesson then, here is an African story by an African writer, and it's being told in South Africa at a university theatre. And reading the text got me to fully understand that that is the key to the character, that text.
Yeah.
And if storytellers or performers don't recognize the power and the sanctity of the text, and they choose to just shoot from the hip, I worry. I'm here to enjoy you as someone, as a vessel, as an instrument through which great writing flows. There's been years and years spent developing exactly that phrase, shaping that character.
Yeah.
And I want you to bring those words to life for me and then bring something to it that has me relate to them. So I forget about you, I forget about the writer, and I drive home or I walk home thinking about Dedan Kimathi, the Mau Mau movement, and what that meant, and now I moved. So I guess it starts with, if you ask for my method, it starts with the text and properly understanding it.
Yeah.
It then flows through what is the best way to have those characters stand up off the page and live on stage. If I can do that, and I'm forgotten, I've done my job.
Yeah. So you really got to work hard also in removing yourself in order to make space for the character to inhabit this. Do you find also in devising some of the characters, how many characters then do you play in My Cape Town?
There's 16 main characters.
Yeah.
And then little ancillary roles, which I don't count. And there's about 4 or 5 stories in there.
Give us an idea of some of the characters, because you're writer and performer. Do you find that some characters have certain words that they would typically use, or mannerisms that they would typically use, and that becomes an identifying feature of the character? Do you have some of those? What are they?
So there's an old man called Desmond O'Brien, known as Uncle O'Brien. And he's going blind after a lifetime working as a welder without always being provided the protective gear. But he also has cataracts. So there's a compounding effect. He leaves his daughter and his home so he can live in a shack. He doesn't tell the daughter where he is, but he leaves so that she can rent out his room, is what he puts in a note, so that she can continue going to night school. And that income would help her stay in night school, right? He's an honorable man, but life hasn't been kind to him in terms of his retirement. And we encounter him in a shack. And he says, as people walk by, his little catchphrase is, he's sort of a little distorted because he's going blind, and he can't quite see people, but he hears well enough. And he says, "Hello, wie gaan daar verby? Come, sit for a cup of tea. I got sunshine on a cloudy day. When it's cold outside, I got month of May." And our introduction to him as someone who welcomes people into his shack in the same way that he gave up his home so his child could have a future. And he has a cup of tea to offer on a primus stove, and he might fumble it. But he almost invites people in through song.
Yeah.
And he has a wonderful spirit. And the story unfolds, will he finally reconcile with his daughter and go to her wedding or not? Because he's been out so long.
Mm.
Can he go back, or does he feel he might embarrass her by being at his wedding because he's got to polish his shoes, he's got to wash his pants. And he loves his daughter so much. Does staying away provide the greatest gift, or does attending her wedding provide the greatest gift? And he's got his mannerisms, to your question. He's blind, and I can capture him in his blindness, in the way he's slightly distorted with arthritis, and the way that he's alone and inviting people in. He's distinctive as a character. We don't have to know every detail about the daughter, because we want to hear him tell the story about his child.
Yeah.
And so that kind of thing matters. When I write it, I imagine him. When I need to bring him to life, he demands more. Because suddenly, a description of him on a page isn't as interesting as simply seeing it. Now, don't tell me.
Yeah.
Show me.
Show me.
Show me. Become O'Brien.
Why do we need to tell these stories?
Very simply, because they're our stories. They're our people. They're our reality. They're our grandparents, they're our uncles, they're our cousins, they're our friends. Whether that was a cop at the Athlone police station, he's still part of our story, and I want to hear his perspective. He might have been a bully, but I want to hear that bully and how Auntie Khadija puts him in his place when he oversteps. They're our stories, they're us. They're part of the cultural DNA that makes us South Africans.
I love that. Such perfect description. Do you only play male characters in My Cape Town, or are there some of the aunties like Auntie Khadija? Yeah?
Yeah.
Give us a sample of that.
Auntie Khadija is very, very proud of her ability to have an opinion on everything.
Which she does.
Which she does. And her friend Sabra, the neighbor, as far as she's concerned, Sabra doesn't make the best kusisters. And she gave us some advice one day.
Oh, she didn't.
Yeah. Oh. She gave us some advice. Sabra was quite offended by this. But Sabra keeps it together. And she finally says to her, Sabra, please, man, please, put some instructions on your kusister packets, man. Number 1, please remove teeth. 2, soak in tea for 2 minutes. 3, enjoy with steak knife and fork. And Sabra's very offended because she believes her kusisters are wonderful, and she just describes Khadija, tells everyone, they're just little brown rocks.
Well, it sounds like a recipe for war.
Yes.
We're going to wrap up, but we are working towards My Cape Town by Pat Pillai coming to Johannesburg. What are the plans for that?
I've written a show called My Cape Town, and I'd love to be sharing these characters and these stories with you. It's at the Ruderpoort Theatre on the 21st, the 22nd, and the 23rd of August. And I am thrilled to be in Johannesburg. The show did play in Cape Town. It will be in Durban soon in August. And when it comes through to Johannesburg, we arrive with Melvin Peters on piano and 2 other musicians who are on long bass and tabla. And I think it's going to be a wonderful evening, and we'd love to have you there. You can get tickets at Web Tickets. Thank you.